Joshua versus Dubois is happening this Saturday, September 21st, starting at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, 11 a.m. Pacific Time. Will be available for pay-per-view purchase on the Zone. Great for East Coasters like me. Normally, for fights like this of this magnitude, I have to stay up super late till like 1 a.m. So super happy, super excited that this fight's going to be early on in the morning, my time at least. So really looking forward to it. It's going to be a good fight, I think. The undercard also looks exciting, so I'm going to be going through the undercard. And I'm not going to do any of the prelims because I haven't really been able to find too much information. I know they're having some like early prelim workouts, from what I understand, too, or something like that. Something happening today. I'm recording this on the 18th, but I'm not going to go through any of the early prelims, but I will go through the main card, so the undercard and the main event, obviously. So, without further ado, we're going to start with the first fight of that main card, which is going to be Josh Kelly versus Ishmael Davis. Now, Josh Kelly, slick boxer, good reaction time, decent pop in his hands. He's not afraid to come forward to land his shots, and he can pick his shots very effectively. Davis, on the other hand, close range guy and lands his combos really well. And he's actually surprisingly good at landing his counters. He seems to have okay power. He can land effectively when he has a guy hurt, so he doesn't like rush in there and kind of like mess up the rhythm that he has going when he has somebody hurt. So really like that from him. The only thing I'm worried about is that when he does start getting hit and he starts taking some shots, he kind of shells up, and that allows his opponents to really start working and beating him up a bit more. So if he gets hurt, I'm afraid that he won't recover because he just kind of shells up and starts taking more punishment, which isn't great for him. But so I just think if Kelly can start getting his combos and rhythm going, and if he like starts like to hurt him, I'm afraid that he's just gonna shell up, get landed on, and eventually get stopped. So I'm gonna lean towards Kelly stoppage, maybe in the 8th, and if that doesn't happen, maybe a Kelly decision. Moving up the card, we've got Mark Chamberlain versus Josh Padley. Now Chamberlain, he is a southpaw fighter, very composed. He's got some heavy hands. He's very defensively responsible. His combinations are really effective when he's the one pushing the pace. His last few fights have ended in KOs, and like even though they're not like one hit KOs, you can see during his fights that his punches have like oomph behind them. Like they seem heavy. Like when he's landing on guys, you can see the reaction that it makes these people hesitate and makes them kind of second guess about whether or not they're going to throw. Josh Padley, aggressive, come forward fighter in the orthodox stance. He has decent power. It looks like his aggression allows him to land some nice shots. But Chamberlain is going to be a big step up on the competition. So Chamberlain, his last 2 fights have been on the Riyadh season, so he's used to that big stage. I want to say Padley's last fight was on some really small card. And so this is going to be a step up in competition. Chamberlain's used to the big lights, and he's probably used to a higher level of competition. But we'll see. And if he's not careful, we'll see how that fight goes. So I'm going to lean towards Chamberlain landing his shots on Padley and then breaking him down as the fight goes on, and then maybe getting a stoppage in the 6th. But honestly, anything can happen. It's boxing. Moving on, we got Anthony Casace versus Josh Warrington. Now, Casace is an orthodox fighter. He comes forward. He's got decent defense. He's got nice shot selection. He's not the heaviest of hitter, but his punches do land and seem to affect his opponent. His last fight was a surprise upset against Joe Cordina, which was kind of a shock because Joe Cordina was like on a nice little run there. And he caught him in the 4th round, knocking him down, and ended up putting him away in the 8th. Super surprised about the outcome of that fight. And Josh Warrington, he is a scrappy come forward guy. I don't like the fact, but he goes into the fight, leads with his head. It's led to a couple of headbutts in his previous fights. He's a decent slick boxer. He has okay defense, and he can land combos, but he really doesn't have that much power, which is unfortunate, especially for the weight class he's in, because he's kind of in with some guys that got heavy hands. He's coming off a KO loss to Leigh Wood, in fact, and I think his chin has kind of been a bit suspect ever since he lost to Lara. Now, if he stays responsible, I think he can win it. But he's coming off. I think that KO was in 23. So he's coming off after a long layoff after a bad KO. So I think I'm going to lean towards Kasache winning by decision, if not a KO, probably like in the 9th round. Moving up, we got Joshua Buatsi versus Hutchinson. Now, Joshua Buatsi, orthodox fighter, he's got fast hands in the pocket. Isn't a knockout artist, but he does seem to have a little pop in his shots. His in-your-face style does kind of allow him to be hit occasionally. And Willie Hutchinson is an orthodox puncher who likes to fight at the mid-range, and he stays really defensively responsible. His punches do seem to have some power to him. And I think he's going to be able to land on Buatsi because he likes to counter these guys as they come in. Excuse me. And I think he's going to be able to land on Buatsi while Buatsi is trying to close the distance. So I'm going to lean towards a Hutchinson by decision. Moving up, we've got Tyler Denny versus Hamza Shiraz. Now, Tyler Denny's an aggressive guy. He comes forward and he's willing to take one to land one. And then at least that's what I noticed. Like in like the early part of his fights, he's willing to kind of trade. But then as the fight goes on, he starts timing his opponents. He's able to land nice counters if his opponents aren't careful, and they seem to hurt some guys because they're not expecting it. He's landing like right when they're about to throw or right after they throw, and it's throws off his opponents. His opponents start getting hesitant, and then that allows him to come forward and work off of that aggression. So seems to have decent power, especially when you aren't expecting a shot to come back at you. So now he did seem kind of small, and Shiraz, big guy for the division, very big guy. And Shiraz is a counterpuncher. So he stays in the mid-range and he lands his counters, right when his opponent is about to throw something or anything like that. So he doesn't have one hit KO power, but his ability to counter-strike really does let him land his shots over the course of the fight and eventually can break down his opponents and lead into a stoppage. His last fight ended by stoppage in the 11th, but he had hurt his opponent throughout the fight. That's more credit to his last opponent's chin, if anything. Now, he can get a little bit lax. He'll get caught, he gets in his rhythm, and then he gets caught with a big shot. And, that could be an in for Tyler Denny. But I think he'll keep his defense up, and I think I'm going to lean towards Shiraz for a stoppage in the 10th. And that's our co-main. And the main event is going to be Anthony Joshua versus Daniel Dubois. Now, if you don't know, Anthony Joshua, one of the top dogs in the division, 2 great fights against Usyk. Wilder ducked him back when they were both kind of in the prime of their heyday, where they were both being talked about as the next big thing. And then Wilder ended up taking the Fury fight, and we know how that goes. So Anthony Joshua, big guy, strong guy, good solid fundamentals. Both hands have power. He's a bit more reserved after his last couple losses to Usyk, but his last few fights have been knockouts. He's coming out and stopping these guys once he knows that they can't really threaten him with anything. So I think if he's able to land consistently, it'll eventually stop whoever's in front of him, really. Now, Dubois is a come-forward guy, likes to land counters, moves around good, got decent power, and he's got good movement speed, and his stamina is pretty nice. I just think that his stance and his style, the way he holds his hands, kind of leaves him open to straight hands down the pipe, especially against taller guys. During his last fight, I think he fought Ergovich. Ergovich was able to land some overhands straight down the pipe on him because he kind of keeps his lead hand down a little bit because he lunges and punches when he comes in. So taller guys like Anthony Joshua, I think, are going to have a nice little target if they're throwing straight rights down the pipe. And so unless he kind of shores up his defense, I think that might leave him a bit open. But I do think, regardless of that, I think Joshua's just going to kind of break him down and then find his shots and start and put him away. I'm going to lean towards a Joshua finish in the 6th or 7th round. That's just what I think is going to happen. But, heavyweights, it's boxing. Anything can happen. I don't think anyone expected Zhang, to stop um, what's that gentleman's name? What's that gentleman's name? What's his name? Oh, why can I not remember his name? Joe Joyce. Nobody expected Jang to stop Joe Joyce in their first fight and then absolutely starch him in their second, you know? Um, so it's heavyweights. I'm looking forward to it. Let me know what you think, and I will see you guys at that fight.